Hey, what's going on, everybody? David Noe with SpeakEasy HR back at it, and it is May. It's Cinco de Mayo, episode 31, and I have an awesome guest with me today, a local guy. We have a little bit in common as he is actually one of our clients with Payroll Partners, so thrilled to have Keith Wilson with Scroggins Greer on today for episode 31. Welcome, Keith.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Yeah, very excited to be here with SpeakEasy HR listener, so love to participate. Hopefully add some value.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to talk to you and dive into your topic, which we'll get to. But for those who are watching live on LinkedIn and YouTube, welcome. If you are new, my name is David Noe. I started this podcast last July, and it's been an awesome ride, adventure through. I was at a local HR collaborative event last week doing live interviews. So if you didn't see that, go to SpeakEasyHR.com and you can find the episodes from last week where I was live at an event. I've got a word of the week blog out there, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I've got some stuff out there for the month about mental health. Today's blog is about self-care. So if you are into reading blogs, definitely go out there and check that out. But along the way, if anybody has any questions watching live, jump into the chat, ask us questions. We love to engage with people that come on. So, Keith, you have listened to some of the other episodes, but for people that don't know you, maybe know me, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've been with Scroggins Greer for about 8 years or so now, right?
Yeah, about 8 years. Yep.
So tell us about yourself.
Yeah. So Keith Wilson, lived in Cincinnati area. Grew up in Southern Ohio, kind of a country boy, and parents were just professionals in a country world, I guess we were, but moved to Westchester after a few years in Northern Kentucky, came to Cincinnati, met my wife in college, and we both kind of connected there and planted roots here. She said, I'll marry you and go wherever the world takes us, as long as it's within 40 minutes of the 275 outer belt of Cincinnati. So that, here we are.
There you go.
Yes. I was in ministry for a while as a pastor, and then I did a lot of work with culture, a lot of work with people, helping people, become their best. And interesting to our topic for today, right? Got to see some great cultures and some unhealthy cultures, and decided to kind of dedicate time after some bad experience of being in a unhealthy culture. It was a great team that became a really unhealthy team over the period of a couple of years. Decided that I would use some of that pain to help others. From what I'd learned about it, was helping build really healthy culture, but got involved with a group that did culture transformation. Essentially would go into places where things were toxic and help turn it around to make it work and rebuild trust. And a lot of hard work, a lot of stress and tears. It's not a full day until somebody's cried in one of my meetings. And it's a fun work, but there's a lot of things we can do to prevent it. So that's a lot of what I'm dedicating my life to now. So then I got connected with Scroggins Greer. Actually purchased the group that I was at to bring it in internal. That's how I'm here. So
very cool. So what kind of work do the folks at Scroggins Greer do? What's their focus?
We are consultants and CPAs. So mostly work with independently owned medical practices and small businesses to help do their books, accounting, tax, business advising, and some pension 401k type stuff. So how we got connected with Payroll Partners came from that, because we had a lot of clients who were having some frustration with some payroll groups that they were with, and we ended up with Payroll Partners. Have had a great experience. Not to give you a commercial that is unsolicited, for the record, but a lot of our clients are asking us things about payroll. So we're doing a lot of advising them on who to go with. So
no, it's
great experience with you all.
That's great to hear. And there's definitely some states that are very complex with tax, and Ohio's one of them, Kentucky, Pennsylvania. So we're in this area, as your wife wanted to stay and see the complexities of payroll and tax that you still have to probably get involved with. But no, that's great. I appreciate you sharing your background a little bit, and excited to talk more about the topic that you're bringing to us, which we'll bring up in a second. And you do have a special SpeakEasy code that we're going to give away at the end, as access to some savings on your assessment that you offer. So we'll kind of throw that teaser out there so people that are listening will be able to take advantage of that at the end. So again, we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you are watching live, chime in, tell us where you're watching. If you have any questions as we get into this topic with Keith, please do so. But now, Keith, it is time. You haven't played it yet. I know everyone enjoys this game. It's the envelope icebreaker game. You just got to pick 1 through 15. So let me transition over to that. And we'll get started here.
How many do I pick? 2? 1? What's the...
Well, we can pick as many as you want today.
I don't know.
If you don't like the question, we can go with another one. How about that? 1 through 15 we'll start with. What's your first?
All right, I'm going to go 4. We were just talking about how I have 4 kids. Surely that's good luck.
Yeah, you got a lot going on. You got one getting married, you got one getting their driver's license.
One just turned 16 yesterday, one getting married, one graduating college, one graduating high school, and the next week, a couple graduation parties. Yeah.
You're a busy man. You're a busy man.
But great stuff. We're thankful and grateful. So
yeah, absolutely. Number 4 for 4 kids. Okay.
4 for 4 kids. Yes.
What is your absolute dream job?
Ooh. Man, I'm pretty much in that. I think if I didn't have to do as much like marketing sales stuff of what I do, then I'd be in it. Like that's the part I have to do a lot of my own marketing and sales. So, but I love what I do.
Yeah.
So I think that's helping people become their best. Discernment is a big thing of mine that I feel like the assessments and listening to people and understanding what's going on and just getting to the root of what helps people work well together and respectful environments. So I get to do that pretty much every day. I guess if I could maybe do it a little more at like in Hilton Head, South Carolina, that might be a little more dream job-ish. Certainly for my wife. That's funny. She's like, I won't move more than 40 minutes, but I would move to Hilton Head, so.
Okay. All right. Well, you can maybe talk to her about that as the kids grow up and you can find some time to go to Hilton Head, All right. One more number. Let's see what you pick here.
Okay. I'm going to go 7.
Number 7. All right. Number 7 it is.
All right.
And all right, when you were in grade school, Keith, what did you want to do when you grew up?
Oh, man. I don't think I really knew. The earliest thing I remember was deciding to do music. So I started my college career on a vocal scholarship at Ohio State. So I know you're a big Team Up North fan, so I'm not going to, but had a bunch of cousins there, and my dad went to the school music there before he went into education. And so
very cool.
I think that's the earliest thing I remember was musician, not like rock star. I think I just wanted to be in music. So
there you go.
Got to do that for a little bit, but a lot of fun, but I also found I kind of geeked out about organizational development and people and relationships. And my grandfather was an industrial organizational psychologist and kind of got exposed to that through him. He was a professor at OU for many, many years. So
very cool.
I think that kind of planted the bug.
Yeah. I wanted to, first I wanted to do like a marine biologist. I wanted to study sharks, right? Like I was obsessed with sharks. And I don't know if you like fishing, but like Babe Winkleman. You remember Babe Winkleman on Sunday mornings?
Okay.
He had some TV show about fishing, so I would watch this guy like all the time, and I just wanted to be like either like a professional fisherman making money or marine biologist. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
something with
doing that
water and fish and
Yeah.
So, outdoors. It sounds like it's outdoors for you, David. That's
outdoors. Yeah. Golf. Yeah. I'm all about it.
I do remember meteorologist. That was a thing in junior high. I thought about that for a while.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I learned the long on road before I was actually like a weatherman, because and how you had to jump from city to city. Like, okay, maybe I won't do that, but still geek out about weather a little.
Geek out. Well, we're going to geek out about your topic here in a minute.
Yes.
On the let me bring up one quick message from our sponsor.
Okay.
And then we'll get into it here. And again, if anyone is watching live, I know we do have a few that are popped up. So anyways, if you have any questions along the way, let's bring them up for Keith. So 1 minute message from our sponsor, Payroll Partners, and then we'll get to it here.
Perfect.
Finding a new employee takes time and money. For one position on a single job board, you could easily spend a minimum of $5 to $10 a day advertising a job post. It's worth noting that the average time it takes to hire a new employee is 36 days. However, it can take longer than that. You could find yourself paying hundreds of dollars a month for a single job board. And if you're using multiple job boards for multiple positions, this could add up to thousands of dollars a month. There is a much simpler and more affordable way of finding the right candidate. At Payroll Partners, we offer an applicant tracking system to help manage your hiring process. Our ATS is customizable, allowing you to decide which days you want to run the job and when to close it so you don't break the bank. And this feature lets you e-blast your network, posting jobs on multiple boards at once, all managed in one location. Payroll Partners, elevating your payroll and HR experience.
So if you are in the market of shopping technology for your business, I've been there, done that. It's a pain to switch, but it is definitely worth exploring other options out there. As Keith had said, we do have some amazing local service support. And if you are shopping or considering shopping, look up Payroll Partners, and we would be happy to just talk to you about your pain points, because I know everybody has pain points with payroll technology. And we can try to help make it a little bit more easy for you. So, all right, Keith. So when I came to you and asked about coming on SpeakEasy HR, you were open to it. And looking at your background and experience, I was eager and interested to see what topic you would bring.
Mm-hmm.
And so you brought up the myth of workplace toxicity. So what made you bring that topic to SpeakEasy HR?
Yeah, we deal a lot with toxic workplaces, and what I've figured out is that the thing that surprised me the most when I got involved in this years ago was that when I thought of a toxic workplace, like toxic, I immediately went to, the place where people are throwing staplers at each other's heads, and there's screaming and cussing and just this brash, rude disrespect that's just open out there.
Yeah.
That was just ridiculous. But what I learned over time is that the most prevalent toxicity that exists is the cultures that are too nice.
Yeah.
And so I think I like to think of it as almost like a continuum of culture, that if you have one end, this like brash, disrespectful, yelling, mean, cussing, and then on the other end is the cultures that are just too nice. We deal largely with these environments where things erode over time and trust is gone and there's a lot of problems, but it's because leaders are not dealing with issues. They're afraid to be holding people accountable. And it may not be more destructive, but it can be as destructive, but it seems to be a lot more prevalent, at least in the circles I run in. And that's far more common is to have a toxic place that's too nice.
So how do we differentiate between, a truly toxic work environment and then the one that's simply just challenging, high pressure, going through change, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think that can be difficult. There's another issue that we face, is that culture can feel toxic to me when it may not be toxic in general. So that's another kind of myth that ties into that, to answer that question. But it's that there's two ways to talk about culture. One is health and one is type. And I've heard a lot of people say in organizational psychology, like there's no unhealthy culture, there's no toxic culture, because they're talking about type. It's like a personality type. There's no toxic type. And this funny story from a while back, but I met one morning with probably the best leader I've ever known, like just incredible president, very present with his people, very clear about what he needs, what he wants, holds people accountable, but just cares a ton for them and gives a lot to his people. And, really great guy. Left that meeting, went to lunch, then went in an afternoon to a different client who, as I was leaving there, I remember thinking, man, that is probably the most unhealthy leader I know, like just a mess, selfish, too self-absorbed, lacks empathy. And I got back to my office and I pulled up his personality profile to think, how am I going to help this person get some of what's going on and some of how their behavior is affecting the people around them. And
Yeah.
when I saw his personality profile, I went, wait a minute. And I pulled up the guys from the mornings and it was the same personality type. They had the exact same personality type. And I thought, how on earth is that? I mean, because it's measuring type, not health, right,
Yeah.
of a human being. And so here you have one probably narcissistic. I'm not qualified to diagnose that, but that's probably what's going on. And one who is just extremely compassionate and empathetic and clear and kind and experienced. And so culture is the same way. If I join a culture that is the wrong type for me, people will leave and be like, that place is toxic. It's so competitive. It's so driven, it's so, worried about the market and making money. But if it's a sales organization, right? Or an organization in a season that it needs to change to be competitive, that's the right kind of culture. It just feels toxic to me if I'm wired like a family-oriented, friendly, empathetic, make sure everybody's heard, So that's another part of it. So part of it is we have to discern that. Is it is it unhealthy, or is it that I'm in the wrong place? And so I think it really comes, that's a roundabout way to answer your question, David. But if I go talk to other people in the organization, if you think about the top few people and say, who's really great here, who seems really engaged, and like they're a model employee in this environment, and say to them, hey, what do you like about this place? What do you not like? And if they rave about the culture, then you might go, that might be an indicator that, okay, maybe it's the wrong type of culture for me versus being a toxic one.
Right.
So that you could be a misfit in that culture. There are cultures that are unhealthy just in general, regardless of type, but sometimes it's just the wrong fit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's become, I think, something that I'm curious when I interview people for jobs and I talk to them about what they're looking for. And I ask them, what kind of culture are you looking for? What kind of environment? And it is a market that's very interesting right now. If you are out there looking for a job, and how long it's taking people to find jobs. I put a survey out on LinkedIn, and people that I've asked in previous episodes about how long it's taking people to find jobs, and it's 8-9 months in certain situations. And then, when I put the survey out, I was looking at some of the results, and it was a little less than that. I think that might have been more of an, national average maybe, but locally, if you were looking for a job, it's obviously you're trying to find the right fit. Right. And that does mean culture, workplace environments, and they're all going to be different. Right. So I think it's trying to find maybe some of the misconceptions that employees and leaders really have about workplace toxicity, because if someone's like, oh, our work, our culture is toxic, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what are some of the misconceptions? If people aren't really familiar, maybe they're a young professional, they haven't really had a lot of work experience yet. What are some of those misconceptions that you would bring up?
Yeah. And I think there's it depends on which camp you fall in. If you're a too nice myth, if you fall victim to the too nice myth, I think some of the misconceptions are things like holding people accountable is mean, or being direct is mean. That's a big one that I feel like too nice people fall victim to. They think that it's not respectful to tell somebody directly, hey, this is the expectation, you haven't hit it. I need you to hit it by X date. Right. I say all the time, people trust what's clear and they distrust what's vague. We trust what's clear, we distrust what's vague. And we have to make sure people are clear about expectations. To be clear is kind. So checking on progress, another one, is mean or disrespectful. Like for me to come in, like people, they're big people. They don't need me to check on them, but no, people need you to check in. And I've been working full-time 27 years, something like that. I still on occasion need somebody to be like, hey, where's this project? Like, are we on, I let that thing slip last week. I'm a little behind now that I think about it. Right. It's helpful done in the respectful way. So, another one I think is, like disagreement is bad. And I know plenty of leaders that I meet with in too nice cultures are just afraid that, oh my gosh, somebody disagreed in a meeting. We need that. Like we need the different voices to speak up. And I love Google's Project Aristotle, right? Where they found out, they were talking about psychological safety at the end of that. But the illustration I remember from that study most vividly is that they were saying essentially if a team of 10 people was in a room and 9 of them said, this is what we need to do, let's go do it. And one went, I know you guys are going to hate me, but I'm the budget guy and we don't have the money for that. Like it's not feasible. That the rest of the team would be like, ugh, we want to move forward, but we know we have to be able to pay for this thing. So Keith, tell us what we got to do. Like they're not going to be mad. It's going to make the team better. And we need that that kind of dissonance in the team in a healthy way, right? In a respectful way. I think a lot of leaders are afraid of it. And so they kind of shut it down or they don't want to let it happen, especially in meetings. So that's not good either. They also believe they can't write people up. That's another misconception, or hold people accountable. One of the scariest things I'll hear early on, if we're doing like a culture assessment to try to figure out where things are, if I hear people say it's impossible to get fired here, or we don't fire anybody, I'm instantly like, uh-oh, we've got a too nice culture, because we hope that the culture will rise to the top performer, but it tends to fall to what we most tolerate, right? And so keeping those kind of underperforming or unhealthy, especially employees, just encourages the top performers to leave. Like we don't realize it, but essentially we're saying, time to go, So those are some myths on the too nice side. I think on the too harsh side, the beliefs are a little more clear. Like personal lives don't matter. I shouldn't have to ask about that. Like that's not important here. Feelings aren't for work is another one. Like we just come in and do our job and move on. I think too harsh people tend to think also that they wouldn't put it this way, but that fear and money are great motivators, and they can be powerful motivators in the very short term, but they're not sustainable or healthy. Never lead to meaningful change. So there's a few misconceptions, I guess. A whole lot more.
Oh yeah. No, that was a good list for sure.
Yeah.
We had Grace chimed in on the chat. She said, I feel like part of the myth of workplace toxicity is being peddled by companies offering solutions to fix the issue. There's plenty of companies doing just fine with great leaders and productive meetings and employees who are generally happy. HR has been identified as a market by the tech industry, and I think it's reaching flood stage.
Okay, I mean like being flooded by places saying you need to fix your toxic culture. Yeah. It was such a buzzword for so long, right? I mean, it's one of the things I will say, what I tell people is if we're not prepared to do something about the assessment or work on the culture and we start asking about it, we're just it's like ripping a Band-Aid off, or a scab off even. It's going to hurt more. So if things are good, ask in the right way, what can we do to be better? And that's positive. But if you ask a lot, if you really dig into it, you don't want somebody to come in from the outside and dig into it unless you're ready to really engage and do what needs to be done, because it just sort of drums it up a little. I don't want to, convince people not to do some of the stuff that I am here to do. But I would rather, if you're not prepared to deal with this stuff, us not to come in and learn about it, because it's just going to hurt more. So
thanks, Grace, for that comment. And
that is good.
Anybody else out there watching live, please add your comments as you see fit, or questions for Keith. So do you think the rise of social media and platforms like TikTok or LinkedIn have amplified or distorted, what people label as toxic, would you say?
Do I think that social media's amplified it? I think
because you make some really good videos on LinkedIn. That's one thing that stood out to me. Your quick videos, I think, are just so great.
I appreciate that. I'm a few weeks behind on those, so it's a good reminder that I've got to I think it's a two-edged sword, because never before, today have we had the ability for employees to be more aware of what's okay and not okay at work. I've seen people online come to the realization of like, oh, it's not okay for my manager to do this or say that. Like, no, it's not. So I think that's very positive, that employees are armed with more context for what's healthy and not healthy. I think they're armed with better information about fair pay and compensation and inequality, which is good, really good. I do think there are people out there proclaiming things are toxic or unhealthy.
Yeah.
That when you hear it, you go, I don't think that's toxic. I think that's just maybe the first time somebody's told you no in your life. Or I had a manager not that long ago come in one day and go, okay, so I had the weirdest interaction with somebody. I told him, hey, I need you to finish this and get it in the system by noon today. And they said, you can't tell me what to do. And I went, this is the manager going, well, yeah, actually, I kind of can. I mean, like, that's sort of my job here. So, and people, I think there are people who, cry, foul play, and toxic and throw those words around that really isn't. It's just the first time they've been held accountable. Maybe, they don't like being told what to do. And that's not
Raising kids, Keith, right?
Yeah.
Like raising kids. You can't tell me what to do. I'm your
Right.
dad.
Exactly. They just rebel. Like, mine have never, said that. No, of course they have.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I love this, Jessica. That's how employees feel on a Sunday speaks volumes about workplace toxicity.
That's very true.
Yeah. Go to a break room on a Monday morning and see how people are. It can really tell you what's going on. Like if everyone's like, oh, another Monday, back to it, just.
Yeah. They're dreading it Sunday night then.
Case of the Mondays.
It's a great question to ask people. How do you feel on Sunday night about work on Monday?
Yeah.
So,
well, and if it's like most of the engagement scores right now, it's probably 72% of people are not engaged.
Not loving it. Mm-hmm.
So they might be looking for jobs.
Right.
So it's keeping people in recruiting and talent acquisition very busy, right?
The good thing about culture is that we all want, at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. I think owners, leaders, managers feel like we don't want, but we do. We want to go, wake up on a work morning and think, I know what I'm supposed to do today. I know what it takes to be successful. I feel like I have the tools and the people around me to do that.
Right.
And I'm going to come in and do it. And I'm going to do it with people that I like being around.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go home at the end of the day and feel like a good sense of exhaustion, like that kind of healthy exhaustion. Like, hey, I put in a lot today that was really meaningful and good. And there's enough of me left to be, husband, father, mother, son, neighbor, whatever it is for the world that's good. Right. Yeah. That kind of good exhaustion. If we feel the bad one, we might need to make a change. Sometimes it happens in seasons. Like, I think it's another thing. We all go through seasons where we got to just buckle down and put in a lot of extra hours and time and learn. And it can feel unhealthy in the moment, but welcome to being human,
Yeah, I mean, that's what's going to cause burnout. You're going to get people that are burned out, right? And there are industries that are seeing it a lot. It's just
right.
So it's how do you fix that if you have people that are burned out, and you probably see it on your assessments. You might ask, like, what's your burnout level? How can we shift that to people that are more engaged, more motivated, feeling like they're fulfilled in their jobs?
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably something that you try to help clients with on a daily basis.
Yeah, we have, especially for nonprofits and healthcare.
Yeah.
A few questions we ask about burnout in particular, that if they score, an average of this, it puts them in a range of how burnout or at risk they are for that. So it's important to measure there. It happens everywhere, but in those two industries, we find it to be one of the biggest drivers of some problems. So
absolutely.
But and some of us haven't learned to manage our own lives well enough to not burn out. I took a sabbatical probably 10 years ago, and it was almost 3 months. I worked a place that was great about that. And what was interesting is I was leaving, and I remember talking to my wife and saying, it's going to be great. I can put all my stuff down. I won't have all the demands of my work life. And I feel like I come home and I'm distracted and I'm not really here. And I've got so much on my plate. I'm just constantly go, 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 go. And so I got the time off, completely off, about 2 weeks in. And I said to my wife, hey, how do you think it's going one night? And she went, oh, it's good. And I went, I don't think you mean that. What, and she said, I think you're going to be mad. And I said, what? She said, it doesn't feel any different to me. I went, what? Because I'd been home. She said, it doesn't feel any different. I feel like you're just as absent, just as busy. And so what I had done is taken this like drive home with me. And that first 2 weeks, I had this laundry list of things to do. I was still getting up at the same time and working on things around the house. Some of it was for my family, but I was just as absent and checked out. And it wasn't helping. Like I'd maintained the same pace. And I remember in that moment going, oh crap, maybe this stress and burnout isn't my job, because that's kind of where I'd put the responsibility. It's how much of that is on me,
right,
for doing it the way I'm doing it, you know. And the expectations were high, but I realized in that moment, like, oh, some of those are my own. Like they didn't ask me to do this or get involved in that. Like I took that on myself. So hard moments, right?
Yeah.
So
well, and that's probably one of the challenges you see, because if you go into an organization and you're trying to help them with your recommendations, it's more of the company-wide level. It's not individual. So if you have an individual or several that you feel like are going to be impacted on a positive level based on the things that you're asking them to do, there's only so much that you can do in the organization to do. So it's the individuals within the organization. So, that leads me to my next question about communication, because I think, what might happen is, toxicity rooted into poor culture, poor communication, and misaligning those expectations, I think is harming the behavior of the culture. And really so how do you get out of that? Like, how do you apply better communication with some of the strategies, that you're trying to put in place?
Yeah. How much of the toxicity is a result of poor communication? A lot of it.
Yeah.
Much of it.
Yeah.
Like in change management, well, I heard somebody say this not that long ago, but we like to say people don't like change. We are fine. We're happy and healthy with change if we understand it, right, and perceive it to benefit us. So it really is about clarity and consistency. So much of the toxicity comes from unclear expectations. It comes from us not checking in frequently enough. We get so busy doing stuff as leaders that we don't ask enough, hey, how are you doing really? That's one of my favorite questions. How are you doing really? Because it's different than how are you doing? Because everybody gets that every day. How are you doing? Oh, I'm good. Fine. But how are you doing really? Like, well, I feel like I'm fighting the same customer over and over and over again about this, and it's dragging me down. So we're not paying attention to each other. We're not paying attention to ourselves. But we're not communicating. Both, I'm not asking enough, and we're not creating a psychologically safe enough environment for people to come to us and say, hey, you know what? I'm struggling a bit lately, and I think I might need to do something different, or take some time off, or can you help me somehow here? So it is a big part of it. We're failing in healthy accountability. Yeah. I talk a ton to clients when I'm working with them that are struggling about how they're communicating, how often they're doing that. A lot of them aren't we created this employee pulse thing. It's, we do a regular survey, but with our clients, like once a year kind of thing. And people are familiar with that kind of deal, but we wanted to have something that over time we could see the trend, because they might take it in January and then not take it again until July, and something in between will blow up.
Oh yeah.
So we wanted a way to see it week to week. And so it asks just a couple of questions and literally takes 60 seconds for an employee to do. But it is something where we can kind of get a view over time as to how it's going. But the point of it really is that the three biggest drivers that I've found of making sure that you have engaged employees are, number one, people need to feel heard and valued. And then number two, they need to feel like they have a boss that they trust and can go to, who has their back. And thirdly, feeling recognized. Those three, the top five things tend to shift places, but they're about always the same top five things when it comes to employee engagement. And those three are always right up there. And so this employee pulse thing that we created, I wasn't even intended to get there, but is like, you'll get a survey, you can say how you're doing, and then your organization is going to know it. And then there's a portion that goes directly to your manager to say what went well this week and how can I help you, to kind of like drive one-on-ones, because so many organizations aren't doing one-on-ones regularly.
No.
And this is kind of a way to push it, maybe, supplement it a little. If they're not doing it, maybe it helps that they're getting something from employees and following up on it. And then the recognition thing at the end, it goes, do you want to high five somebody? And you can type in, yeah, I want to high five David for, great episode. Thank you for XYZ. And it immediately goes to them. So
Very cool.
Kind of get those three little things. But again, it's that manager to employee communication, listening to people. Who knew? Being human, right?
Being human, being able to clearly communicate, and
yeah.
We just add more technology to our plate. So
what kind of rhythm do you see being successful with the one-on-ones in your world? I'm curious, because it's a little different everywhere.
I think it's very like what you see a lot. It's very specific to the organization and what they value. And when they value employees a lot, and they know that if they value their employees and take care of them first, the employees will take care of the customers.
Right.
And it'll be a really good cycle. So I see it firsthand, and we do employee one-on-ones. It's very important. Everyone's busy, like you said, but scheduling time, blocking it off to get them done. Obviously you have busy seasons of the year, so you try to stay on that schedule. But if you don't, it's really hard. And Jessica has a point to some extent. She said employees hate.
Right. I just saw that employees hate one-on-ones. That's a strong statement.
And I'm curious, Jessica, what situation that was, because what I might hear her say is that they sit there and complain about things that never get fixed. So it's
right.
It's kind of like, yes, it's a time to connect with people and figure out where they're at with different projects and workloads and things like that. But if the individual comes into that one-on-one with their manager and all it is complaints, the manager's not going to want to do it. The employee is never going to see change the way that they feel like it should. So they're just going to get more disengaged.
Right.
She had said, I have used a one-on-one every Wednesday morning and would have a sick stomach for days leading up to it. It was awful. We started doing a group format and it was much better. Just my take. Yeah. And so again, like those situations might be specific to the organization, because obviously right now, if people are working remote and they're not in person, sometimes one-on-ones are effective virtually, but you get
right. Yeah.
are you getting the person's true full attention? Are they on their phone? Are they doing work while they're trying to talk to you? It's it's very specific to the organization. And I think she has another good point. Management that doesn't care, unappreciative management is the worst of it all. So
yeah,
I really agree with that.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think that's the biggest point, Jessica. You're spot on. Like if I have a meeting with somebody who I know doesn't care about me and isn't listening, I'm going to hate that no matter what kind of meeting it is or how frequent it is. And that's an excellent point. But when you do it well and have compassion for your employees and are following through, then they're never going to dislike that. I remember having to do one of these the first time, probably 12 years ago. I had to do this, thinking, okay, here comes another meeting. Do I really want to do this thing? And what I found is the second time that my boss at the time, his name was Steve, got my update, talked to me about something, and came back an hour later and said, hey, I just talked to the department head over there. We're good to go on that. And I was like, oh, like he just fixed something that's been bothering me for months. Then it was like, okay, I'll do this one-on-one now because it's paying off. Right. And so done well, right. It has to be done out of an actual care for your employees. I think it's saying, hey, how are you feeling this week?
Yeah.
What went well? Where do you need my help? Like if those are the kind of three things you get to, and you actually follow through on where you need help, people are going to love that. Who wouldn't love to have somebody come to them and go, hey, how are you doing this week? And what can I do to help you? And what went well. We're going to talk about some of the positive because our brain's hyper-focused on the negative.
Yeah.
Right?
Have a clear agenda so that people know what you're going to talk about, have like 5-10 minute increments of the agenda, and then celebrate a small win, a small victory for the week. What's your biggest challenge in your job right now? What can I do to help?
Right.
Be a supportive manager without telling that person, hey, I'm going to fix all your problems. Like, we're going to figure them out together. That's where I see managers that really are respected and valued, and they have high retention because their team knows what they're expected to do. They're held accountable, but in a healthy manner. And it doesn't look as though they're being told what to do all the time. And they're like, oh, you can't tell me what to do. So it's
Right.
all the approach to those one-on-ones. So if someone is listening, obviously, Jessica, appreciate your feedback. But if you are not doing one-on-ones, or if you are, maybe look at the agenda that you have and shift that to a structure where the employee does get the chance to bring maybe a situation to the conversation, but talk to them about solutions. Like, ask them, what solution do you have to fix this problem? Well, I don't. You're the manager. You should know what to do to fix it. The managers don't know all the answers either. You know what I mean?
Yes,
so
right. Yeah, it's so funny. I think it's a balance. You have to have a relationship with people for it to go well. And I think you have to, probably the hardest lesson that I figured out maybe 7-8 years into leading people was that in order to be successful as a leader, I was going to have to lead everybody a little bit differently. I kind of assumed up until that point that the style of leadership or my approach was going to work for everybody because it would work for me, or it's what I was, was innate to me, but it doesn't work that way. So even going to your people and saying, hey, how would you like these one-on-ones to go is fair to do. You might have something you have to do every time, but some are going to be like, you know what, I'm doing my job, I'm fine, I don't need this, that, or the other. But we need to know what's going on too. So as leaders, but each one might be a little different, but you probably need to have some commonality there. No substitute for actually caring for people and listening to them, though.
Yeah.
If we're not doing that,
yeah, and it's hard to find. I mean, my manager now is one of my favorite. Thanks, Amy. Yeah. I appreciate how she manages me. I see how she manages our team.
Right.
And a good manager is hard to find. And a lot of people love the company, love the culture, maybe not, but the manager has a big play in that. And if you take those little extra steps as a manager and you show empathy and respect and you communicate, you're not going to lose people and see that they're going to leave because of how you're managing them. So, So any other questions out there in the live chat, please put them in if you have any comments. So Keith, what advice would you give to leaders that we maybe haven't covered, as you're navigating through the toxicity of workplace culture and, things that, different teams should be mindful of that we really haven't covered yet?
Yeah. I think I've got a few steps on that, but really the biggest thing lately that I've been talking to a lot of people about is that while the culture is really what somebody asked me recently, if you had to sum up what it takes to create culture in 3 words, what would it be? And immediately my brain went, and I'd never said this before, but it happened quickly. Leadership, living values.
Yeah,
leadership, living values. Let's be clear about our values. Let's know what they are, know what they look like, and let's live them out. Yeah. We have to model it, right? And culture does start with the leaders knowing and aligning on the values and living them out in some, meaningful way. But, we all create it and contribute to it every day. And so when I find cultures that have gotten really toxic, usually everybody's kind of given up and they're just like, this is hopeless. This is never getting better. And we don't realize that we have power every day to come in and make it better. We all do as employees, managers and leaders, owners, the most so. But I've seen cultures turn around that started with one person just deciding one day, you know what, I'm not going to keep just kind of trudging along. When things happen, I'm going to go, hey, Joe, you know what? You said this yesterday, kind of ticked me off, and I feel like we need to talk it out, or I can go to my boss and say, this has been bugging me for 4 freaking years, and I need to tell you about it. I have power. I just kind of have given up. And culture change starts with you, whoever you are. And as soon as, and especially the really struggling ones, I'll spend a bit of time talking about the moment that we all pick up our own responsibility and say, hey, I have some responsibility here for this culture and I can make it better. I can choose to interact with people in a different way. I can choose to try to deal with some of those hard things as I need to. Basically, we need to say, we have a problem and I'm part of it. And the second we say that, and I can start becoming a part of the solution, things can start to change. Whoever that is in the organization can spark a great change. So one, let's all take responsibility for it. Leaders first most, what we model, what we allow, what we create intentionally is what the culture becomes. So I think as leaders, you have to, when you're navigating it, you got to listen to your people, right? If you see some issues, you need to really understand it first, make sure you know what it is. Try to remove the judgment, like kind of go on the listening tour thing. Like they're going to say this and I'm gonna get mad. Like just listen to understand only. Let people tell you why they're frustrated or things feel toxic, and look at yourself first. I had a great leader once who said, when we really look at it, organizational development studies have shown that when an employee is struggling, it's like better than 80% of the time, the organization's failed to give them some type of tool or training or accountability to help them be successful. Like more often than not, it's something we haven't done well as a leader to set them up to succeed. Not all the time, but if we look at ourselves first, and we have to approach it that way, what can I do to help it? Then that's going to make it work better. I think second also is being vulnerable as a leader. If we fall victim to this, I have to have all the answers. It doesn't work. It doesn't help. We have to come to it and go, hey, I know we've got some stuff going on and I haven't figured out how to fix it yet, but I need to hear from you what you think is up. And I'm going to do what I can. And I think it's going to be hard, but I'm committed to making this place better. So I'm going to do what I can to make it better. Will you help me? Like just being honest. Vulnerability builds a tremendous amount of trust very quickly with people. I think leaders feel like they have to kind of keep it close to the vest, but that feels even more unapproachable to our people, and then thirdly, it's making a real commitment and following through. So like once you understand it and have really heard it, you've been vulnerable about what's going on and the things that need to change, starting with yourself first, make a commitment and do it. That, to Jessica's point, if I do it, if I listen and then do it, that will build trust. If I don't, it makes it worse. So
those are
definitely
those are really good. And you brought up just trust and being vulnerable. And I can't stress enough how important that is as a manager. And when you are in that role, you may not think that is super important in the moment, but it really is. And whether you think it or not, I mean, you just put yourself in the person's shoes across the table from you in those one-on-ones on your team, and just see what their perspective would be of how you're managing them. And would you want to be managed that way? Because I've had bad managers and I've left jobs because of a manager, and it's the way it is. And a lot of people are like that, So
yeah, the best leaders figure out how to understand that about their people and know how to speak their language, and certain ones you learn to go, hey, I was in college as a RA, and I remember this one kid would not clean his room. It was becoming a fire hazard, and I got on him about it, and he finally cleaned it up, and he just dumped all his trash in the hallway, which was an even bigger fire hazard. And I'd been trying to like, hey, Joe, can you just clean this up? It'd really help. I'm trying to help you out here. I don't want you to get fined. I don't want us to get in trouble. Did that 4 times. It didn't work. He's finally throwing stuff in the hallway. And then, so I threw it all back in his room one day and I thought, this isn't working. He's a super direct, kind of challenging guy. And so he comes in, he's mad because his trash is back in his room, whatever. And I said, Joe, I hollered down the hallway. And he said, what? I said, I did it. I told you 4 times, shut your mouth and take your trash out. It's not that hard. And to me, that felt like way too abrasive, but he went, oh, I'm sorry, Keith. Yeah. You told me. I know, man. I'm really sorry. He took his trash out, came back, gave me a hug. He's like, man, yeah, I know. It's just like, that worked. He needed something just to be like, dude, do it. I told you to do it, And so played football. He's a tough dude. He just needed somebody to get in his face a little bit, like in a non-harsh way.
Oh man, I love it. It's so fun. Yeah. So you've made an impact on a lot of people's lives, especially as in the your college years. Trying.
Yeah, I learned a lot from those boys for sure. They gave me the ornery floor.
There you go.
Like, yeah. Which meant some really interesting.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate everyone's engagement today. Keith, this has been awesome to have you on. I really appreciate your feedback.
Yeah.
Seems like you've been in the thick of a lot of this lately, and I'm sure you will continue. So, appreciate you coming on, and want to give this out to the people that are listening. So, Keith, if you want to just tell everybody about this special SpeakEasy code.
Sure. Yeah. So one of the things we do that's a good start into some of the work that we do is a culture health assessment. So it's a pretty basic, 7 to 12 minute, depending on which version we pick, for employees to do. It measures employee engagement and how likely people are to turn over, which we've gotten really good at predicting. We do this mostly with small, medium-sized businesses. So we've got a really good barometer as to how you compare to others, but it gives you a sense of where things might be off. We can kind of see by department, et cetera, what needs some help. So it's, when we facilitate it, it makes it nice because we're protecting. I had a survey once where supposed to be anonymous, but then I got confronted with some of my responses later from somebody who was not supposed to have any idea what I said. So when we facilitate it, allows us to keep it confidential as to who's who, but also give you some data so you can see, okay, yeah, the IT department is having, some issue with respect, or maybe they don't, have the best relationship with their supervisor. So without identifying those people, but so it's something, it doesn't take long. We facilitate it usually through email or text. It's sent, people fill it out, and then we then bring the results back to the organization. Most people are probably familiar with this kind of thing, and share it with you in an hour. And I give you some clear next steps. And obviously we can engage to help do some of that, but oftentimes we've got real capable leaders and we just go, hey, I do this and this and this, and then you're going to be off and running, and let's talk again in a year and do it again, So I think the important part is that we're listening to people, we're doing something about it. And if you're a leader who, the second the leader sort of loses hope that it can get better, then we're in a real problem. So if you're curious, you feel like, I'm not sure what people are thinking, and you want to help it, this would be a good way to do it. But leaders have to be carriers of the hope, right? That it's going to get better, that we're going to turn some things around. And if you feel that, then I'd love to talk to you just in general, because a lot of people are relying on you. You might need my little hope speech that I give to people. So would love to do that for anybody. But if you put in the SpeakEasy culture, when you email me specifically, then we'll give you $400 off of that assessment that we do. It's usually $1,350. It's make it $950 one-time cost. So we just talk with whoever there is going to help facilitate it, and email it, get the results, share it with you directly, and give you some steps. So, and some steps then, how do you then actually do something about it? A specific way to communicate what you've learned, with vulnerability, to build some trust. So
what's your email address so everyone has it?
It's K Wilson, KWILSON, at scroggins-greer.com. So Scroggins merged with Greer, SCROGGINSGREAR.com, scroggins-greer.com.
And if you're not watching,
so if you Google us,
if you're not watching Keith's videos on LinkedIn, I would connect with him on LinkedIn. He's a great follow, especially if you're in the Cincinnati region. Definitely look him up. He is worth a follow, and I always really enjoy listening to your videos on my feed when I see him on LinkedIn. So keep up the good work. Sounds like you're a little behind. So
get
to those.
We're good. Yes, I got to get those out there.
There you go.
Appreciate the reminder.
Absolutely,
David. That's good.
There you go. Well, Keith, I appreciate your time. It's been great to connect with you, and really learned a lot. Hopefully everybody else did that listened, and have a good rest of your day. Good luck with everything going on in your world with work and your 4 kids and everything. So I'm sure you'll have a busy fall, or it's not fall yet, spring, summer, fall, everything going on. And we'll talk to you real soon, Keith.
Yeah, sounds good.
All
Thank
right.
you, David.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everybody.
it. Thanks, payroll partners.
Have a great rest of your day.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you.